Hey there, AP Hug team. This is Sanchez with our lecture for supranational organizations and our discussion for our United Nations module. Just briefly to start off with a definition, supranationalism is the concept where several sovereign states align together for a common purpose. A number of the supranational organizations have been formed for the purposes of trade alliances, military cooperation, and diplomacy. These organizations, for the most part, have 3 or more members, and there's many of examples that we can see today of these types of organizations. Number 1, which would be NATO, which is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which purpose is for military. We have organizations like OPEC, which stands for the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. This is a cartel or a group that controls oil pricing across the globe. We have the NAFTA, which is the North American Trade Agreement, which is trying to establish a free trade zone. We have the Organization of African Union, which is going to be the OAU for regional diplomacy. And we have the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, which is the IMF, which is in part of government loans and so forth. So there's many different organizations that we see across the globe. Now, there's also, of course, pros and cons. There are many reasons why states choose to team up together. The benefits, of course, they're on a team. There's no loners. There's no one left behind. To the benefit of everybody succeeds, everybody's advancing, everybody's working together. As far as some negatives we're going to see across, obviously when states are working together, they perhaps have different goals or different directions. And there's some evidence where we could see that could lead to some future conflict. Now, probably one of the most well-known and the focus for our module is going to be the discussion of the United Nations. Now, the United Nations chief purpose is for diplomacy. And we can go back in world history in terms of before the United Nations, there was an organization known as the League of Nations. Now, World War I, which happens 1914 to 1918 occurs. It was known as the Great War, the war to end all wars. And there was a great need after, at the close of the war, at the Treaty of Versailles, to try to figure out how nations can come together and prevent future wars from happening. Prior to World War I, there was a system of alliances, a lot of power struggle. So the goal at the close of the war was to establish a peacekeeping organization, and this organization was known as the League of Nations. Now, United States President Wilson was really at the forefront of this League of Nations. He came up with it, 14 points or 14 ideas, as he called it, to try to make sure that the war was prevented for future. The League of Nations was established for basically a place where states could go together and hash out any problems or any disagreements before we have any future conflict or coming wars. Now, originally the League of Nations was established in 1919. There was 58 members total, but interestingly enough, the United States was not a part of the League of Nations. Even though our president came up with the idea, the United States Congress did not allow the president to join the League of Nations because the United States was fearful it would be dragged into another costly or dramatic war. Now, the League of Nations was established after World War I. The United Nations, very similar to the goals of the League of Nations, was established after World War II. Only 49 nation states signed the original charter or the original agreement of the United Nations in 1945, but because many new nations have been created since then, the membership of the UNN has grown to 193 members by 2012. The UN has lasted for more than 65 years, and its membership truly makes it a global organization. Membership to the UN is voluntary, but it has some limited powers to force its members to abide by the organization's peacekeeping principles. There's only a few, 3 or 4, we call it non-members for the UN. For example, Taiwan, which there's issues with China, one of our conflicts. Vatican, which is located in Italy, not necessarily a complete member of the United States. Palestine, Kosovo. So there are a few members. Our newest member of the United Nations was South Sudan, which was established 2011. Now, as far as goals of the United Nations, there's kind of four main goals we think about in terms of what the United Nations is for. Number one, just like the League of Nations, the goal of the UN is trying to keep the peace across the globe. Number two, also to develop relations, to create an open dialogue in which states can work together and discuss issues or concerns. Number three would be to improve the lives of poor people across the globe. And then finally, just to be a center for harmonizing and making sure that one country or one state isn't getting too powerful, that they can all work together in the global world today. Again, interesting facts about the UN. We have today over 120,000 peacekeepers in 16 operations in over 4 continents. It mobilizes 12.5 billion US dollars in humanitarian aid, financial aid across the globe. It assists over 34 million refugees, which again, that number's grown quite a bit with recent current events. And again, something like vaccinations. The UN vaccinates about 58% of children globally. Now, the United Nations has several offices across the globe, one of which will be in New York City, United States of America. Another office is going to be in Geneva. One of their third offices in Vienna and Nairobi are some of their major offices. United Nations, we could kind of think of it having like 6 main parts or 6 main branches. The first one being the General Assembly. For the most part, kind of think of the United Nations like a giant parliament where every single country has a voice, everybody has a vote to decide and negotiate major issues. The second main branch, which we'll be focusing on, which is the Security Council. Our third main branch, which would be the Secretariat. We also have the Economic Social Council, the Trustship Council, and the International Court of Justice. One of the main portions of the United Nations is the Security Council. One of the main powers of the UN is that the members can vote to establish a peacekeeping force in a hotspot and request states to contribute military forces. The body for making these decisions is the Security Council, and with any one of its 5 members, 5 permanent members may veto proposed peacekeeping action. Maybe I should back up a step. The UN Security Council, just to clarify, actually has 15 members total. There's 10 that are revolving members, but there's 5 in particular that are permanent members. We have China, we have France, we have the United States, we have Russia, and the United Kingdom. Those 5 permanent members have power of veto, meaning that they can reject or deny any proposed peacekeeping action. During the Cold War, the Security Council was often gridlocked because the United States and Russia, obviously, during the Cold War, they disagreed. Today, that gridlock is broken, but there's still difficult for all 5 countries to agree on a single course of action. Peacekeeping forces have been sent into separate warring states in Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and Sub-Saharan Africa. The United Nations forces are supposed to remain neutral. They're not supposed to pick a side, but they usually have restrictions on their rights to use weapons against either side of the dispute. Despite the limitations, what they can and can't do, the United Nations is a forum where most states of the world meet and vote on issues without resorting in war. Now, under the United Nations Economic and Social Council and a lot of different branches of the UN, may include many sub-organizations that promote the general welfare of the world's citizens and monitor and aid world trade and economic contacts. These efforts are funded by membership dues and represent the extension of international cooperation into areas other than peacekeeping. For example, we have the World Health Organization, which is the WHO. We have Food and Agricultural Organization. We definitely know how important agriculture is to a geographic discussion. We have the UNDP, which is the Development Program, and another one that's very familiar to us, which is UNICEF, which stands for the United Nations International Children's Education Fund. All right, AP Hug team, I think that wraps up our brief overview of the United Nations. Remember, use these lecture notes to help you complete the module, and I'll see you guys in class. #AP Hug Life.